Here's why I am so excited for the future of Polkadot. And even though nothing I say is financial advice, not too long ago, Polkadot put out a post on X. And in that post, it said that in 2024, Visa processed 234 billion transactions. That works out to 7.4 thousand transactions per second on average. And we got to think about this, right? When it comes to Polkadot, allegedly, what it can do in theory is that its scalable architecture handled 143,000 transactions per second using a fraction of the total capacity. I just think that people don't really consider that because people usually, when they think about Visa, they're like, wow, it is very amazing. And don't get me wrong, Visa, I think it is hypothetically something that, I find very amazing too. But then I think Polkadot sometimes doesn't have that recognition, doesn't have kind of like that reputation where it's like, hey, it's a real deal type of fundamentally amazing thing, maybe allegedly, because usually when I see people who believe in Polkadot, they don't really know what it's all about. They don't really take a look at this type of stuff. Some of my friends out there that, believe in Polkadot, they just think it's cool. That's it. But then they don't really know. But then I think that really taking a look at stuff like this, at least personally for me, when I believe in a project, I think it's crucial because it kind of gives me a glimpse as to what the project's really doing. Because some other projects out there that are pretty massive, they're not showcasing their, kind of performance. They're not really showcasing anything. And sure, on paper, they may say they're good and all this type of stuff, but we just don't really know. And I think the numbers really do speak for itself. There's no guarantees if it's ever going to do amazing, let's say, moving forward, despite the pretty good market cap right now. But I think that, again, just taking a look at stuff like this is very, exciting for me. You got to think about this, right? I would say that arguably through this, it kind of showcases that Polkadot could maybe hypothetically play somewhat of an impact in the payments market. Because we all know Visa, at least in theory for me, kind of plays a pretty big role in that, right? In terms of the hype and attention, at least from my perspective. And seeing kind of these numbers when it comes to Polkadot, when compared to Visa, couldn't Polkadot maybe somewhat have a role in that? Let's say DOT, its native token, were to go to the price of, let's say, $50, that wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. Again, even though nothing I say is financial advice, because beyond everything I said before when it comes to Polkadot, we have to consider what is Polkadot's main focus. Allegedly, I would say it's something called interoperability. Why is this crucial? It's because many projects out there, many, blockchains, many networks, they lack the ability to freely send data and value to each other, which allegedly, again, means that if that is the case, that is lacking interoperability. Like, for instance, a very famous example is Bitcoin and Ethereum. Independent of one another, can't freely send data and value to each other. In theory, they lack interoperability. Now, what steps in and saves the day quite essentially? Something like Polkadot. And again, if there's going to be more blockchains, if there's going to be more networks that are going to pop up in the future, wouldn't Polkadot play somewhat of a role maybe in that? So this is kind of like my perspective. Not to mention, when it comes to Polkadot, there's something called Kusama, which is a canary network to Polkadot. And the role this plays is that it's basically kind of like a testing ground, I would say, when it comes to Polkadot, because usually projects that want to launch on Polkadot, they're going to usually launch on Kusama first, test out the project, and then if they like it, later on they move on to Polkadot. Not necessarily saying that every single project is going to move on to Polkadot, because take a look at Moonriver, very famous project on Kusama. I'm a fan of Moonriver, by the way, but I'm just saying, like, it's not a requirement for it to move on later to Polkadot, but many projects do it from what I see anyways. And the reason why some people prefer, or should I say some developers, again, why they prefer to go to Kusama first before Polkadot is because allegedly it's easier to make changes on, and also allegedly it's far cheaper to rent building space. So just kind of more so like a testing ground, I would say, for these projects that don't necessarily want to jump straight onto Polkadot, if that makes sense. So I do like, kind of the concept that Polkadot has. I mean, I like the Kusama vibe. I like the Polkadot vibe. I mean, I just kind of feel like Polkadot, I get it. Maybe it doesn't have the cool factor of like a Pepe or whatnot, but then this just really interests me nonetheless because I like its fundamentals, I like its utility, and this is a project that I don't want to give up on. Let's say DOT were to go to the price of $50. Considering current circulating supply, market cap at that point would be around $80 billion. That's around a 14x from here. Dogecoin, by the way, exceeded over $80 billion in market cap back in 2021. That was years ago. So if many people are arguably saying that the factors are actually looking more bullish right now, like for instance, all the hype surrounding the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF, take a look at the amount of enterprise adoption. Now we have over 600 million crypto owners, according to Crypto.com research. Back then, during the peak of the 2021 bull run, around 300 million. So you pretty much have double. So if Dogecoin, a meme coin, allegedly, again, I get it, it is very famous. But again, if that was able to reach over 80 billion back then in terms of market cap, are we saying DOT maybe can't hypothetically go to around $80 billion in market cap this time around if we do ever even see a fully fledged type of hypothetical altcoin season? That's the question I like to ask myself. But ultimately speaking, there's only one thing I can do, and that is stay patient and wait. Literally, that's it. Because, again, when it comes to the markets waking up or not, that's beyond my control. I can't do anything about that. I can't do anything about the price of DOT. I can only control myself. So what am I going to be doing? Just dollar cost averaging into the projects I believe in, holding and just waiting. Literally, that's it. In the meantime, though, of course, I'm going to be focusing on what the project is doing, the fundamentals, and kind of the partnerships. But beyond that, really, I can't do anything else, right? That's the only thing I can control, and that's myself. So instead of me worrying about things that are beyond my control, I'm just going to focus on what I can control. And that is just, again, by treating this like a marathon. It's not a sprint for me. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's only the captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.